Hello guys, it's Alan here from What Kind of Man at YouTube, and this will be my diaries of the Smash 2012 and the Australian heat of the Bandai World Cup. It's the Thursday night, about 10 o'clock, and I'm starting to prepare and get ready to leave for the airport tomorrow morning at 5. I'll be meeting up with a fellow modeller, and we're going to fly into the city of Sydney at 9 in the morning. And we'll be entering our kits around, I'd imagine 2-3 in the afternoon. The deadline's by 5. On the Saturday, I will hopefully be bumping in and meeting other Gundam Australia forum members and other modelers for the competition and do full coverage and just wrap up and chill out after that. I'll show you the lineup of kits that I'll be entering, except for the one that I'm not quite finished, the Hell Morgan project. That still requires some decaling and top coat. Just a quick look at my workstation and the airbrush station, and I got shit all over the bloody studio. All I have left to do is decals, and it's in the box here. And with that and a top coat, I'm possibly ready to sleep for a few hours, wake up, pack this last and head off. This is the lineup of models. The Farsia and SD will be entered in categories. Farsia 1 to 144, SD in the SD, the Retsumaru. I built a little diorama especially for him. And since I like to bring a few models, I can't enter these two into the competition, but they're allowed to enter in the display. By the way, I think I smell cat shit. Better investigate that. As always, everything will be transported in the handy dandy esky. Packing boxes full of fluff, styrofoam, bubble wrap and other stuff. 5 AM wake up, being ready for my father to pick me up at 5:30 for a ride down to the airport. I received a text message saying the flight's been cancelled, which razzed me a bit, but was able to negotiate to fly out around a few hours later and be in Sydney just before midday. Me and Wolfman hung around the airport looking at duty-free alcohol and eating noodles for breakfast. Half asleep, my ears popped on the plane, and later on losing my camera before I got to the hostel. It started off not being such a great trip, but kept my focus and spirits up, and things turned up really well later on. Once we were settled in the hostel and started wandering the city for medication and a new camera, things really turned up. The new camera I bought is fantastic and I love it. The chemist was admiring my friend Wolfman's models, as he's very familiar with Gunpla and buys it for his kids, and we easily made it down to the convention centre to enter our models. A very quick shout out to the YHA at Sydney Central on Pitt and George Street. Very cheap, fantastic resources, recommend to stay there every time. Back on track, at the train station heading from the airport to Sydney Central and around the exhibition centre, we bumped into Mark, last year's Bandai World Cup winner for Australia, and it was very nice to catch up with him. After dropping off the kits, having a chat to other modelers in the staff, plus my good friends Oz Animart, who was also trading in the venue, we headed off back to the hostel, had a little dinner and had an early one for a 5:30 wake up. Between a well-deserved and really needed long sleep, a hot shower and the fresh air around the harbour, I was absolutely ready and poised for an early queue up into the Smash convention. Being in front of the line waiting for an hour or so to get into the venue, I unfortunately got stuck between these two guys that were talking quite nerdy uninteresting stuff, which was difficult to slip away from. And eventually, once we were piled up into a room before the doors opened, I met Ghost of Xeon and had a nice long chat with him. At this point of the story, I went in, spent the first amount of time taking photos and looking at the kits, talking to a few people, and the second half just wandering around. A few times I did get separated from the fragmented groups I was with. We weren't tied together as a large unit as well as we were last year, thus leaving some of us to be alone and a bit bored from time to time, but it was definitely a positive experience. I'm leaving 2 links below, one of my overall review of the competition and photos of the models, and a second link will be on the other channel, the review of the event, photos of cosplay and whatnot. Including everything I may have mentioned about Hobbyco's hospitality, they also threw a Gundam workshop where they gave away free SDBB kits and gave you a half an hour opportunity to build them. Due to its popularity, I saw quite a few people spilling across the convention, sitting in halls and walkways, snapping the kits together happily. The award ceremony occurred after cosplay, so the hall evacuated like rats on a sinking ship, though it was conducted very nicely. Another link down below of the ceremony itself. I stood at the back and filmed it. My good friend Wolfman X did win in the 1/100 category and received a phone call last night confirming that he was going to be there to receive the prize. I was very proud of him and he was quite happy for the entire trip. At the end of the day, we celebrated, and celebrated quite hard on top of the rooftop where the pool resides. Another gentleman did come up with his kids and said that there were fireworks that night to boot, which we happily enjoyed and took photos of, and later on got absolutely shit-faced off a few tinnies. After a restless yet decent sleep, besides the indigestion, we got up a little later and checked out, enjoyed a lovely breakfast, and resumed shopping around Sydney before our flight out later that evening. In our adventures along George Street, we came across quite a sweet second-hand bookshop and made a few purchases. Some pretty cool bits and pieces and sights. This wicked old man, it was very cool. One man protest movement targeting politicians' sexual abilities, and a memorial to the Queen's corgi. Only in Sydney. Once the shop started opening up around 11 o'clock, we made a pilgrimage to Hobbyco to spend my friend's prize money. After he nabbed himself a master grade Murasai, he was very kind to let me spend the rest of it on some bits and pieces for myself. Thank you very much for that, Wolfman. Another stop was Hobby Dream near the theatre. They have a lot of unusual and aftermarket bits and pieces from China. I always grab a few bits of lacquer paint, decals, and aftermarket parts, but this time I didn't blow out too much money. Near noon, we headed down to the harbour to meet some of Wolfman's friends who were cosplay photographers from Melbourne. We did some touristy photos of the Opera House and bridge and headed off to some lunch in Chinatown. Afterwards, in the last leg of our trip, we head off to the Chinese Friendship Garden, which is very close to our original location of the convention centre, to meet up with some more people for some sort of cosplay photo shoot. Out of all seriousness, some of the photos were pretty effective. Later, we went back to the airport very, very tired and sore, and head back to Melbourne. This is my haul during the trip. I didn't buy too much, A, due to restrictions of luggage, and B,
Normally I don't buy a lot of things at cons and stuff, but this is a lot more than I actually expected I would bring back. First, this second-hand Konami Mecha Musume figure. I'm actively trying to collect the entire collection as I missed out when they were popular. She was nice and cheap. Some lacquer paints, clears, Mr. Crystal Colour, and whatnot. A new camera. As you guys know, my digital camera either went missing or pinched. Still not 100% sure, but my friend Wolfman X, who is an expert in photography, recommended this Canon PowerShot G12. It's a beautiful model. It served me very well on the trip, as you've seen. Shell Norm figure, just a cheapy bargain bin $5 joint thing. Mecha Musume fodder. I've got a $2 F18. I could make a Valkyrie looking thing. Now, Hobby Dream in Sydney sells a lot of rare and interesting hobby items, including the lacquer paints. This looks like some sort of one of those Chinese only edition decals with the Musha Gundam. There's some beautiful Chinese characters there. This would be very useful. And these Chinese or Hong Kong edition decals of some very large Xeon characters, and the Flanagan logo, which is the mob that do a lot of the Psycho Frame research on the Xeon side. So that's pretty damn cool. Onto the model kits. Now, I had no intentions of buying model kits, but my friend Wolfman X won in the Master Grade category, including a $100 voucher. He grabbed himself the Master Grade Morrissey and wasn't interested in anything else, and invited me to spend the rest of it. There was a few old kits that caught my eye, and I ended up only paying 25 cents for this collection. So, besides the $500 blowout on the camera, this was a fairly cheap trip. Almost forgot, 2 beautiful bottles of plum wine from, they're Japanese, one's manufactured in America though. Sometime in the future I will be reviewing these 2 on my secondary channel. Good afternoon, guys. Now, I've returned from Sydney last night about 10 o'clock, and the final day I was wearing uncomfortable shoes over the weekend, so the legs were quite sore, a bit tired, lots of walking around the Darling Harbour of Sydney Opera House, the Chinese gardens, some cosplayers, and back to the airport. Unfortunately, my friend who had an injury was really struggling and suffering, but we managed to get through, checked out some hobby shops, and I'm extremely glad to be home. I've reported back my findings to the Gundam Australia forum and had an absolutely a blast of a weekend. It was just absolutely efficient and got a lot done, including drinking and a pool and fireworks, you know. So, yeah, thanks for watching this video diary. Had fantastic time. Separate video for the Bandai World Cup checkout. The general con review will be on the other channel. And we'll see you guys later. Thanks for that. Now, with my big Project Hell Morgan out of the way, the channel's going to go back to normal. I've got quite a few kit reviews that I've built that I haven't quite put up yet due to laziness. Some paint reviews, product reviews. It's been sitting around for a while waiting to go past the camera. I'm not going to do anything big or fancy for a while except for the Summer Wars Gundam Eclipse forum build, but I shouldn't be anywhere near as difficult as the shit that I've been trying to get done lately. So look forward to that, guys, and maybe some resin kits soon.